Good morning, members of the media and to the viewing and listening public. Thank you for joining us this morning for our weekly press briefing here at the Office of the Leader of the Opposition. As you all know, these briefings are held every Sunday to discuss and highlight important issues affecting the country. I'm joined this morning by my parliamentary colleague, the Member of Parliament for the constituency of Naparima, Mr. Rodney Charles, who would speak shortly after me. Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday, October the 16th, marked the 33rd anniversary of what is known as the Arangwes Mandate, an event which was really the birthing of the United National Congress. And on that day in 1988, thousands of persons stood in the rain in support of what was known as Club 88, the foundation of our party. As true patriots stood in the rain on that day, yearning for unity, equality, and social justice, we continue to stand firm today in support of the rule of law, the doctrine of separation of powers, and in support of the independence of key institutions established by the framers of our Constitution. These are all key components of our democracy, and when they come under threat, it is the duty of every single patriot to speak out and stand up to those who seek to erode our freedom and the way of life that we enjoy in this our treasured republic. The rantings of our madman have not and will not stop the opposition under the astute leadership of Mrs. Kamala Persad-Bissessar of Senior Counsel from exposing the ominous threat posed by the dictatorial tendencies of Keith Rowley and the PNM. The Prime Minister said one thing yesterday that I could possibly agree with, and that is that if aliens landed from Mars, they would not think that Trinidad and Tobago had a government. I have to agree with that. Because when you look around at the sad and sorry state of affairs that we are in this country right now, it is hard to imagine that we have a government. Our country is falling apart, literally. Roads and bridges are falling apart, but our institutions are also crumbling. Now, as an attorney and someone who practiced in the criminal arena for a while, I can tell you that a person who confesses and places themselves in the scene of a crime is a person who knows that they have been caught. They have been caught, and now they have no option but to rant, rave, create as many distractions, diversions, excuses as possible, because they can no longer deny the role that they have played in this very disturbing saga. The Prime Minister admitted that for a year, a whole year, he has been engaging with, interfacing with, having communication with the Police Service Commission, or perhaps only the chairman of the Police Service Commission, and I'll come to that in a short while. But he has been talking to them or to this person about the Commissioner of Police, the then Commissioner. He has admitted to writing to the Police Service Commission to say that he lost confidence in the Commissioner of Police. Based on what? He could only say based on his judgment. So Rowley is now the person who will pass judgment on a person and deliver unto those who have authority over the person whatever information he sees fit, and he does not think it is necessary to explain himself to the public any further than that. Last year around this time, I know then Commissioner Griffith had stood up to the Prime Minister, and very rightly so in my view, to tell him that his interpretation of police powers under the public health regulations was wrong, and that the TTPS could not enter into private property and so on, and we all remember that. And you would recall that Mr. Griffith was summoned to a meeting, and thereafter he had to apologize and so on. Now, interestingly, after that, the government sort of backpedaled, and then they ended up declaring a state of emergency, which is what Mr. Griffith said they had to do if they wanted to give police those types of powers. So in a way, they admitted he was right, but they did not say that he was right. And I don't know if it is that in highlighting this flaw in the logic and the reasoning, and the lack of logic and reasoning and legal acumen on behalf of the Prime Minister and his legal advisor, the Attorney General, is what put Gary Griffith into, a bit of a pickle sometime last year and caused this letter to be written. I shudder to think that a Prime Minister would be so petty, but it appears that if Rowley said jump and you don't ask how high, he will lose confidence in you and he will attack you. As we have heard him yesterday, he attacks everyone and everything that is not pro-PNM and pro-Keith Rowley. So he realized then perhaps that he could not get the Commissioner of Police to simply follow his dictates and his commands, and that did not sit well with him. So he embarked on what appears now to be a campaign against the Commissioner of Police. So he started to interface with the Police Service Commission. 1 whole year this has been taking place. He astonishingly says that there is an element of interaction built into the independence of our institutions. Well, Mr. Prime Minister, I want to tell you that is hogwash. That is hogwash if you believe that what you have done is some sort of interaction that is built into the independence of our institutions. This is how you are justifying an attempt to influence the Police Service Commission in the exercise of their functions under the Constitution. You go on to say, and that he doesn't have to pass through the president to get to the commission or anything like that. He could do it himself. He is so bold-faced that he is boasting that he can and will and already has utilized his office to feed information to what ought to be an independent service commission. He went on to say that recently he received information which came to him and the National Security Council, and he sent the minutes of a meeting of the National Security Council on to the Police Service Commission as well. Now, I have to ask today, is this the report of the Mongoose Gang of Two? Because it was raised in the Senate when Mr. Griffith was told by the Minister of National Security not to return to work after his vacation leave. And the Minister of National Security admitted that two people who currently hold no office, who have no legal authority as investigators, they do not work for the Police Complaints Authority, they do not work for the Professional Standards Bureau, they do not work for anyone as far as I'm aware, they are both retired. They were sent on a fact-finding exercise. Those are the words of Fitzgerald Hines, Minister of National Security. He said they went into the field, they interviewed who they had to interview, they spoke to persons on this fact-finding exercise purely to advise the National Security Council. But now we are hearing that the minutes of a National Security Council meeting found its way to the Police Service Commission through the Prime Minister. So the fact-finding exercise may have actually resulted in information collected in a most unusual and perhaps even illegal manner being sent to what ought to be the Independent Service Commission, who were engaged in the process of recruiting and selecting a Commissioner of Police, because of course the contract of Mr. Griffith had come to an end. He was being interviewed for a position, and minutes of a meeting where information came to the National Security Council from these two retired people that they pick up and send to investigate found its way to the Service Commission through the Prime Minister. And what is so shocking and disturbing and unsettling about this is that we don't even know if the whole commission was made aware of these feelings and sentiments and loss of confidence and this information that the Prime Minister obtained through his two appointed fact finders, or whether it was only shared with Ms. Blissy Prasad, the former PNM board member who was placed on the Police Service Commission as its chairman. I want to remind the population, the media, and everyone, it is there on the Hansard, go and look at it yourself, that the opposition raised concerns about the independence of Ms. Prasad when her nomination was placed before the House. We asked, how could a person could be given what is known and accepted as a political appointment on a state board, at the same time be appointed to an independent service commission? Ms. Blissy Prasad was serving as a board member of the, I think it was the Chagrams Development Authority at the time. She was holding a political appointment to a state board, and they put her as to head and what is or should be an independent service commission. Well, the country is now witnessing the aftermath of that very poor decision. Rowley's admissions yesterday, ladies and gentlemen and brothers and sisters of this country, raise even more questions and make it even more critical for key office holders to account to the population for their action or lack thereof. And let me start firstly, most respectfully, with the President, Ms. Paula May Weeks. The President, now more than ever, must account to the people. Silence is simply not an option. By remaining silent on critical issues, the President is bringing the office that she holds into disrepute by appearing to be partisan. I am not making an allegation that she is, but you know, in the law we always say justice must not only be done but must seem to be done. Well, it is the same thing. You must not only be non-partisan, but you must appear that way to the public. The public must have confidence that the office of the Prime Minister sits above the politics and has no fear or favor in how they exercise its functions and duties. So there have been many calls for answers and explanations, not only from the opposition, but emanating from all different segments of society, and this cannot be ignored. The population has lost confidence in the Police Service Commission, in their independence. They are concerned about the state of the country, about rising crime, and that due to the incompetence of Faris Alwari and political interference by the Prime Minister or chairman of the chairman of National Security Council, and what appears to be acquiescence by the President, we have no Commissioner of Police. We have no acting Commissioner of Police. We have no police service commission to even appoint a commissioner of police or an acting commissioner of police. This is the first time since our independence that we have found ourselves in a situation like this, and that is, you know, members of the media, most troubling. It is most troubling, and it is very significant. We must hold the persons who contributed, the authors of this debacle, must be held to account. So I say with the greatest of respect, Madam President, that it is unacceptable, and as a responsible opposition, it is our duty to say that we cannot accept this silence and non-disclosure on behalf of the people of this country. I noted the statement that was issued this morning. I saw it first thing this morning, issued by the President. Now, again, it is most troubling that only now, after all these questions have been bandied about and so much speculation and cases being filed and affidavit evidence being put before the court with respect to the merit list that was submitted to the President. We had one affidavit from the acting director of personnel administration, another affidavit, and I will quote from them just now, from the deputy director of personnel administration in the matter filed by Mr. Ramisa. We had counsel representing the Police Service Commission making certain submissions to the judge in the matter brought by Ravi Balgobin Maraj. All of these things are, you know, the whole country has been asking itself, where is the merit list? Which merit list? Was it an acting merit list? Was it the substantive merit list? Today, the President has come out and said that the merit list was submitted on the 11th of August. I can confirm that an order of merit list with respect to the Commissioner of Police was delivered on 11th of August 2021 to the office of the President and withdrawn almost immediately thereafter that day. So the 11th of August is what we are working with now. In the affidavit evidence filed in the matter of Ravi Balgobin Maraj, the acting the acting director of personnel administration says on the 12th of August, a merit list was submitted to the President. And now we are hearing in the matter of where Mr. Anand Ramisa has petitioned the court in a judicial review matter based on the Commission's decision not to shortlist him and so on. The Deputy Director of Personnel Administration says this: the Police Service Commission has withheld submission of the merit list to the President after attempting to do so because of certain security concerns that came to its attention. As the Police Service Commission is not itself conducting the investigations, not being equipped to do so, to compile a security reports, the Police Service Commission cannot say exactly when the reports will be available for it to finalize its merit list. This is madness. This is pure madness, because a merit list, the entire process prescribed by law, had been completed, and a merit list, we are now hearing from Her Excellency the President, a merit list was delivered to her and then withdrawn. And now we are hearing that they have an investigation that they are not conducting. Well, who is conducting it? We have to rely on what was leaked out of the letter that Mr. Roger Kewal Singh wrote to the President, saying that Ms. Bliss Sipasad, as chairman, was acting unilaterally, went off on a frolic on her own, was interacting with retired Justice Stanley John. So is Justice Stanley John conducting the investigation? What are the terms of reference for this investigation? We need to know. The Deputy Director of Personnel Administration says the Police Service Commission will finalize its merit list when the security report is available. So what we have now, and this affidavit was sworn on the 27th of September, not so long ago, is that up to now there is no actual security report before the Police Service Commission. What did they act on when all hell broke loose on the 11th and 12th of August and they pulled back lists and sent a different list and interface and interact and all of that? We do not know. But we don't know what that information was, and nobody is willing to come out and say. And the President gives her reasoning and explanation for it. She asked a series of questions in her statement here today, and I will attempt to give my my take on some of it. But I must say that it is quite frightening that anybody can take information to the chairman of a service commission about someone who is a candidate or who may be on a merit list or who has applied for a job or who has been shortlisted for a job, and that could cause the entire process to simply be squashed and meritless, to be pulled back and so on. That is a very dangerous situation. It really speaks to the level of autocracy and the type of the lack of discipline and the lack of independence that we are seeing in our institutions, which are enshrined in our constitution for a reason. It is to insulate them and to ensure that they remain independent. So, the leader of the opposition, she has shown extremely great courage in stepping up and taking on this fight on behalf of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. No one is above the law, and if something untoward has occurred, all those who are involved or those who have knowledge of what happened must account. Now, the president's questions, and let me get to them, and I didn't intend to deal with this today, but it has come out, and so I have to deal with it. The president says that if there exists apparently credible information that it might impact upon the deliberations of an important constitutional function of the Police Service Commission, should it be brought to the commission's attention, or should the commission be left in the dark? Well, Madam President, I wish to put forward that what it should happen if someone has credible information is that it should go to the appropriate authorities to investigate. We have authorities set up in law. We have a police complaints authority. We have a professional standards bureau whose job it is, whose whole function is to investigate police officers, including the Commissioner of Police. We have those mechanisms there. We have the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, another independent office, which can then review information and determine the credibility and give instructions to police officers to go and investigate, which they have done in the past. So that is my answer to that question. How and by whom is it determined whether the information meets the threshold for consideration? Well, again, I would say I would relieve that information not to Keith Rowley, not to Blissy Prasad, not to the man who had been writing for a whole year to say that he has no confidence in the incumbent Commissioner of Police and is now bringing information to Missy Prasad, not to the man who we know, has brought false information to the Parliament in the form of emails and so on. This is what you considered, Madam President, and you are now almost defending, justifying, and making excuses for this information being passed to the Police Service Commission when nobody can say how credible the information is. We are left to assume that it was credible information because they pick up two fellas somewhere on the road and tell them, who have no office, and tell them go on a fact-finding exercise. This is the information that we must be satisfied is supposedly credible and went to the Service Commission. The President goes on to ask about, what is the mechanism for it to be brought to the attention of the Commission, and says, that when you have public dissemination in the Parliament and so on, well, that can tarnish your reputation. Well, do you think it is preferable for somebody to go and shoo and whisper, or as one of my colleagues likes to say, to go pusur with Miss Blissy Prasad and tell her certain things, or tell the Commission certain things and give them information that is not verified, and scrap the whole recruitment and selection process prescribed by law? Do you think that is more is better than going to the Parliament? And I have to say no, because if you go back to the 2006 amendments passed by the Manning administration to the Constitution, it was a suite of legislation that was brought. The Police Complaints Authority was set up. The Constitution was amended. The Police Service Act was amended. New Police Service regulations came in shortly thereafter. They abolished what was known as the power of veto that the Prime Minister enjoyed over the appointment of the Police Commissioner. And the reason for doing so is because the notification would have to come to the Parliament, and the Parliament is where you have the opportunity to debate and to raise these concerns, the same concerns that the Prime Minister was writing about, the same concerns that as head of National Security Council he passed on to whoever he passed it on to, wherever and whenever he did, whoever collected the fact-finding, whoever went on the fact-finding mission for him. All of that could have been aired in the Parliament. That is the place for it to be done. That power of veto, the Prime Minister essentially, what he did here by writing to the chairman of the Police Service Commission and by passing this information on to them surreptitiously and secretly, basically gave back himself the power of veto. He essentially tried to exercise a power of veto by whispering the information that he had to the chairman of the Police Service Commission. And you know what is so dangerous and why the power of veto was removed in this situation? Because the power of veto allows the Prime Minister to just say, no, I don't want that person. It still exists in relation to certain officers, or I think all of the most senior officers in the public service. But for a commissioner of police, it was felt that that was too much power to give to a politician over someone who is in charge of all the criminal investigations in the country. So the power of veto having been removed by Prime Minister Manning in 2006, you cannot now sit back, Madam Prime Minister, and look, Madam President, and look at the Prime Minister essentially exercising that power in a way and see nothing wrong with it and not speak out about it. So, Madam President, you have still said that you do not think that it will serve any purpose to identify who is the person, but the person has identified themselves. And, you know, the President has gone to great pains in her statement to emphasize that she has not, and her office has not participated or allowed or encouraged and attempted any improper interference and so on. But if you know the person who may have done so, it is your duty to identify them, and it is your duty to speak out and to stand up to that level of interference. Madam President, you are a distinguished legal mind. You must know that it is simply not an option for someone to feed information to a service commission regarding a matter of such grave importance, and for the Police Service Commission to not follow through with a proper procedure. Why, and I will get to it now, why were the actions of the Police Service Commission not more transparent when they did receive complaints and so on? So this brings me to the other character in this saga who, by virtue of her resignation, seems to think that all is forgotten. And I want to say that Ms. Bilisi Pasar cannot and will not be allowed to simply slip out of this melee without being held accountable for her very questionable conduct. The Police Service Commission chairman must say whether she shared the information that the Prime Minister sent to her with the other members of the Commission. Because Roger Kewalsing, and I referred to it before, he wrote a letter to the President when he tendered his resignation, and he seems to suggest that other members of the Commission were left entirely in the dark when it comes to certain aspects of this whole saga that was playing out, including some of the communication that Ms. Sipasad had with retired Justice Stanley John. So, was it to discuss the information that she had received from the Prime Minister? It appears that she also unilaterally made the decision to suspend Mr. Griffith from his acting appointment, and that she refused to withdraw that suspension. Now, I think that Mr. Kewal Singh also alluded to the fact that, and I saw some information that was made public, where all of the other commissioners wanted to get independent legal advice, and this wasn't done, and it appears that Ms. Sipasad was acting without the benefit of that advice. So this raises very serious questions about who was really advising and instructing her, because I don't think that she could just be so callous and be so bold as to just take it upon herself, ignore all of the other commissioners, and just carry on this frolic of her own, unless someone perhaps influenced her and told her that she should do it. And if that is not the case, well, she should come out and say so. And if she was influenced, then she should also come out and say so. Because, you see, she embarked on a process now of interviewing candidates, having had a complaint from the Prime Minister about Mr. Gary Griffith. Did this bias her mind against Mr. Griffith? Did she allow Mr. Griffith to respond to the complaints that came to her a whole year ago from the Prime Minister? If the allegations or information in the minutes from the National Security Council and the complaint from the Prime Minister were not put to Mr. Griffith, but were in the mind of either Ms. Sipasad or any other member of the panel of persons who were screening and interviewing applicants for the position of Commissioner of Police, and they acted on them, they formed any opinion without giving him the opportunity to be heard, then at a minimum, they have breached the principles of natural justice. As I said before, the two conflicting affidavits suggest that information was coming fast and furious towards the middle of August when the process was already completed. So, you know, it perhaps made a little more sense to say that after they completed the process, there was new information that they had to hold back and probably look at. But now we are hearing that it's a whole year now. It is a whole year that minutes from meetings and letters of complaints about loss of confidence and so on were coming to them. What did you do, Ms. Sipasad? What did you do when you received these complaints? Did you act upon them? Did you share them with the other commissioners? Did you put them to Mr. Griffith? Did he know about them? Was he able to respond to them? You must come out and say so. And I say again, as the person who appointed the Police Service Commission and the person who at the end of the day must ensure that independent institutions like the Police Service Commission do not simply lose the trust and confidence of the public, I would ask the President to require the members of the Service Commission to answer those questions. Now, in a final, as I wind up here today, I think we have put a lot of information out there, but I have to touch on my learned friend, the Attorney General, the loser who claims victory after every major defeat. I think that Mr. Alwari has lost his, or he has missed his calling in life. He has absolutely no legal acumen, as we have seen. He continues to give bad advice to the Cabinet and the Prime Minister, costing the state thousands of dollars in legal fees. But he certainly would have had an excellent career as a spin doctor. Because before all of the legal interpretations, before all the legal opinions, which again cost the taxpayers money, Mr. Alwari, Attorney General Alwari, boldly proclaimed when the concern had been raised, this is before any litigation was filed and so on, about the interpretation of his very poorly drafted paragraph 4 in the 2021 selection process order. He said that he can quite respectfully disagree with Mr. Prasad. Mr. Prasad is the person who raised it. He said after the Commission writes to the President, it appoints an acting COP under the Constitution. Section 123 is abundantly clear. Well, apparently it wasn't abundantly clear enough to you, because you got it wrong. It says the PSC has the authority to appoint someone to act or hold office. So I respectfully don't think there's any complication or error on the part of the Police Service Commission. Having had the benefit of the process of drafting it, amending it, updating it into law, I am quite clear in my mind that the process has been carried out correctly. Well, Mr. Attorney General, it is only in your mind that it seemed to be clear, but it was not clear in anybody else's mind, including apparently now the President. So the President had concerns. You came out and gave bad advice to the whole country. You are the legal advisor to the state and you gave bad advice to the whole country as the guardian of the public interest, the titular head of the bar. You could not even read Section 123 of the Constitution properly. So then you were only forced to concede the claim after someone leaked the opinion of retired Justice Nelson. And again, I heard that the Prime Minister saying yesterday, well, they had so many different legal opinions, so they got the opinion of a learned senior counsel. Mr. Prime Minister, the fact that if one paragraph in a piece of subsidiary legislation could generate so many different interpretations is all the evidence you need that Faris Alwari is incompetent and that he has put forward a badly drafted law, not for the first time. In respect of this same Police Service Commission selection order, it is the second time that litigation has had to be launched. It is the second time that the court has found the order to be badly drafted. It is the second time that Faris Alwari's incompetence and his desire to somehow meddle in this process of appointing a police commissioner, whether it is substantive or acting, it will cost the taxpayers of this country money. Now, Mr. Prime Minister, you said yesterday that the first person who pointed out the flaw in Alwari's order to you and the unconstitutional appointment to the Office of Acting Commissioner of Police was the President. Why didn't you act immediately? Why didn't you instruct your Attorney General to file an interpretation claim? You know that could be done. It was done, in fact, by the Attorney General in relation to the matter involving the former Chief Magistrate. Why didn't the President act immediately? Again, Madam President, and I'm happy that you said it here today, that you are not a rubber stamp, because I wrote it last night. You are not a rubber stamp. You appointed the Police Service Commission, and if you are of the view that the Constitution mandated that the notification be sent to the Parliament, no one, not the Prime Minister, not Blissy Prasad, nobody else should have been able to convince you otherwise, and you ought to have acted, Madam President. Ms. Blissy Prasad and the President basically ignored Section 123 of the Constitution and followed Alwari's bad law. So, when Alwari went into hiding after the leak of that opinion and he emerged only to try to save face now and say, well, the same applies to the 2009 order, also drafted under a PNM government. I don't care how he tries to spin this. These are two PNM governments that put two bad orders in place. And yes, it's existed for many years. Nobody picked it up, but nobody raised it. During the tenure of the People's Partnership government, A.J. Alwari, you were a senator. You were sitting there. Why didn't you raise it with all your legal acumen and constitutional law experience? And that's sarcasm, in case you're wondering. So you seem to think that because the 2009 order is bad, that it makes your 2021 order less bad? Well, it does not. Mr. Alwari, A.J. Alwari, I want to say, you know, what has happened in this scenario, when the concern was raised in the public domain by Mr. Prasad, is really the personification of the disaster that occurs when ignorance collides with arrogance. Because you do not know what you are doing, but you also do not know that you do not know what you are doing. And that is very dangerous to the country and to the legal affairs of the state being managed by someone who is not only unaware, but isn't even willing to stop and pause and take a look at what is happening. Now, you asked the court to widen the scope of the case, and it turns out now that every acting appointment made since 2009 is bad for both Commissioner of Police and Deputy Commissioner of Police. I hope that you can deal with the consequences which flow from these two PNM made laws which were offensive to our Constitution. You claim victory for placing something into our law which the court describes as superfluous. I don't know what type of victory that is for you. It is a demonstration, I think, of how shallow your understanding of the law really is. A.G.L. Wari lacks the intellectual capacity to appreciate the ramifications of his sloppiness and his penchant for what he thinks is creativity in the passing of laws. He continuously undermines the Constitution, removing special majority requirements, introducing far-reaching measures which impact upon the rights and freedoms of individuals via subsidiary legislation. Now, many of these matters are engaging the attention of the court, so I will not say more on that right now, but I will simply say this. Time longer than twine. And what may seem like a political victory for you today in various matters may be a legal defeat tomorrow. And no amount of press releases and right foot, left foot, pussyfooting around serious issues will get you out of the mess that you are creating. And I want to encourage every single person in this country, every citizen, every patriot, everyone who is concerned about the state of affairs of this country, to support our call for answers, for accountability, and for transparency from the highest office holders of this land. The three highest office holders of the land, the President, the Prime Minister, and the Attorney General, all have questions to answer in relation to this debacle, and we are taking every possible legal step under the guidance and the knowledge and the experience of Ms. Kamala Prasad-Bissessar to hold these persons to account on behalf of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. So thank you very much, and we will take some questions after, but I will hand over now to my colleague MP Charles, who, coming out of this state of affairs with the Police Service Commission and the Commissioner of Police Office, is going to speak a little bit about the state of crime affecting our country right now.
Thank you, Senator, my colleague, Senator Jayanti Lakshmi-Diyar. That level of erudition, enlightenment, clarification as to what is the challenge that faces all of Trinidad and Tobago at this time. Brothers and sisters, Trinidad and Tobago has the misfortune of having a Bajan Prime Minister hell-bent on destroying our independent institutions and who majors, unfortunately, in commerce and bacchanal. Yesterday I listened intently to Prime Minister Keith Christopher Rowley, once again demonstrating why he is the worst disaster ever to befall our country. Yesterday we saw hate. We saw acrimony. We saw bitterness. We saw animosity. We saw anger. We saw a Prime Minister lacking both class and brought-up-see. We saw a wajank, a hooligan. We saw a madman completely out of control. His dismissal of legal opinions and questions aimed at safeguarding our democracy as hogwash is frightening. He clearly has no intention of respecting the constitutional walls which the framers of our Constitution put in place to protect our democracy. In Trinidad dialect, he told us he could speak to whom he damn well pleases, and we could put that in we pipe and smoke it. He professed his adherence to his oath of office. Where was this oath of office when the AV drilling matter arose? Or when he bold-faced lied about Emailgate, and to date he has not apologized to Kamala Prasad Bisesa for that bold-faced lie he spoke on her. He is not a man. He is a little boy. We pay his salary. He works for us. He cannot talk down to us, dismiss our concerns as hogwash, and buff us repeatedly. And mind you, he cannot bully his way out of this crisis. He cannot. My colleague laid the case clearly, forcefully, and frontally. He cannot bully his way out of this crisis. Dr. Rowley must learn that he must follow rules. He must follow guidelines. He must follow protocols of the position he holds. And if he cannot do that, if he does not wish to be questioned by us, the citizens, then he should wean himself off the treasury, collect his blasted index pension, and go mine sheep in Ohio. The further, the better. So while he was busy denigrating everyone who opposed him, Barbados Prime Minister Motley was busy advancing her country's interests at a high-level meeting with the US Vice President Kamala Harris. Days before she ascended to the position of head of UNCTAD, before hosting an important global trade conference in Bridgetown, Barbados. She is following in the footsteps of Kamala Prasad Bisesa, honors graduating at top of her class in law school, and so esteemed as Prime Minister was she that the Chinese President Xi Jinping and US Vice President, then US Vice President Biden, visited her here in Port-au-Spain. She was a sought after leader at the United Nations. I was there. And you want to know why Dr. Rowley attended United Nations General Assembly meetings only twice in 6 years? Because he cannot bully other world leaders like Kim Jong-un of North Korea or the new Taliban leadership in Afghanistan. They will hit him so much, carpet. So we are left with a badger, a bully, and a leader that has lost his marbles. And we are asked, why compare Keith Christopher Rowley with Mia Motley? And we are told this is what we have. We have to deal with his calumny, his badgerism, and his lack of class. Dr. Rowley thinks in binary terms. If you are for him, okay. If you question him, you are an imp. You're unpatriotic. You are deserving of his wrath. And as if anyone cares. Yesterday, Dr. Rowley attempted to bully the media. He chastised various senior counsels. He cussed opposition members. He berated media commentators. And he asked, what did Her Excellency do to warrant the motion against her? And the answer, sir, as was clearly articulated by my colleague, is what she did not do. If indeed she received various lists from the Police Service Commission. And Prime Minister, bully that you are, or bully that the Prime Minister is, he more or less advised us that he controlled the PNM. He was on Her Excellency's side yesterday, and regardless of the facts, he would use his majority to stymie the motion. And to hell with democracy. But Prime Minister, you cannot bully your way out of this crisis. You may get away in Parliament, but not in the court of public opinion and in the court of right-thinking citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. So what we saw yesterday, we could ask how disgraceful it was, how utterly deplorable, how shameful, how despicable, how contemptible. What a poor role model for the PNM backbench and for the next generation of leaders, Trinidad and Tobago. We have to question, is Dr. Rowley losing it due to his COVID diagnosis earlier this year? John Hopkins, the WHO, and the CDC have warned about the residual impacts of COVID-19 on the brain, especially the young, long-term neurological and psychiatric symptoms, including confusion, trouble with reasoning, focusing, problem solving, and changes in behavior of those recovered from the virus. Is this the reason for yesterday's bout of absolute insanity? Dr. Rowley has bullied and beaten all our independent institutions into submission. The only two institutions standing between autocracy and democracy in Trinidad and Tobago are the UNC under Kamla Persad Bissessa and the Privy Council. Let me repeat. The only institutions standing between autocracy and democracy in Trinidad and Tobago are the UNC under Kamla Persad Bissessa and the Privy Council. Where are the other voices of reason and outrage? Where's Merle Hodge, Father Harvey, Canon Nolly Clark, Reginald Dimas, the powerful ladies of Trinidad and Tobago? Where are they? Where is the comatose trade unions, the silent chambers of commerce, the IRO, the Fourth Estates, the Rotary Clubs, the Law Association, the South Chamber of Lawyers, the independent senior councils? Where are they? Scared of a bully? Hoping for a contract? Or a little invite to a social function? Silent because of racial or other considerations? And while there is silence, Trinidad and Tobago is literally going down the drain. Our trade union movement is dead, either bought out or outmaneuvered. I ask the question, would Butler, Tubal Uriah Buzz Butler, Kola Rienzi, George Weeks, Selwyn John, or Errol MacLeod have kept quiet today while Trinidad and Tobago is being destroyed by Keith Christopher Rowley? Meanwhile, we all know that the EBC has been infiltrated by the PNM and is totally compromised. Dr. Rowley says 15 seats in Tobago, and so it shall be. They meekly obey. The Police Service Commission is compromised. We have the evidence and the resignations and the futile explanations. Belatedly, though some of them are. The presidency has questions to answer about lists allegedly sent to her by the PSC, and I'm told that there's a response today in the press. And we are witnessing bold-faced interference in the TTPS. A Trinidad and Tobago Prime Minister cannot investigate a commissioner of police. There are independent institutions for that. My colleague spoke to them about them. The Prime Minister alleges in yesterday's press conference that independent institutions will have an element of interaction with the government as written in law. And there is, and I quote, there is no public entity that is cloistered. Prime Minister, there is no public entity that is cloistered. You see where the Prime Minister is coming from? You see the madness we're dealing with? It doesn't end there. Senior officers of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, the Trinidad and Tobago Regiment, the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard move seamlessly from retirement into well-paid contract positions in the PNM administration. Is that not a reason for them to compromisingly support politicians? The parliament exists to give a veneer of validity and respectability to an increasingly autocratic P&M executive, and I'm speaking about all our independent, so-called independent institutions being compromised. A not so bright Attorney General plays fast and loose with the 3/5 majority requirement. And nobody sees anything wrong with that. Cabinet ministers head independent oversight joint select committees in Parliament, and nobody sees anything wrong with that. And our speakers and Senate presidents elected in a manner that would ensure our speakers and our Senate presidents elected in a manner that would ensure their complete impartiality? Question I ask. Can independent senators not be selected in a manner that ensures their independence? Why can't they not be nominees of the trade union movement? So when they speak, they represent the trade union movement, or the Law Association of Trinidad and Tobago, or the interreligious organization. Why can't we have independent institutions nominating persons to the independent bench so that they speak independently and they respect certain interest groups in our country? Our Prime Minister tells us yesterday that he could see anybody anytime. He tells us with a straight face that he wrote the Police Service Commission months ago, indicating that he had lost confidence in Gary Griffith, and that he can talk to the commission chairperson, even a president, anytime he feels. We know that when he talks, he thinks he speaks normally. But when the tone and the bullying language, it is highly possible that our Prime Minister's bullying is affecting democracy and affecting good governance and the independence of institutions in our country. It is possible. And the Prime Minister tells us that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service will function as normal. He appointing an accounting officer will not solve the problem of an absent commissioner of police. We ask the question, can Colm Imbert as accounting officer of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service transfer or discipline policemen or issue firearm licenses? And all this is taking place while crime continues unabated, notwithstanding a state of emergency. So while the IRO continues with its posture of quiet support of Dr. Rowley, a former two-time president of the IRO, who is my constituent, fears going to his home for the past 2 weeks because he is on the hit list of a gunman. Fearing for his very life, the former IRO president sleeps in a sanctuary somewhere in San Fernando. I won't give the name of the place to protect him. One of his neighbors was killed last week by the same gunman allegedly in a land dispute. The shooter is known to the police because of CCTV evidence. The gunman is still on the run from the police. Meanwhile, the former IRO president sleeps away from his home. Not a word from the IRO or our spiritual leaders about Dr. Rowley's mishandling of governance issues or crime. Would the former Archbishop Anthony Pantin have remained silent today? Why not a word to the citizenry from Archbishop Gordon or Bishop Claude Berkeley or the heads of our other religious faiths? Are they beaten into silence by Keith Christopher Rowley? Do they not have a spiritual mission to speak truth to power and be a voice crying in the wilderness? Meanwhile, despite a state of emergency, crime continues unabated. We have 318 murders according to the Express, despite a 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew and significant restrictions on our freedom of movement. We witnessed 7 murders in 24 hours a few days ago A garbage collector shot dead in Port of Spain. Now, garbage collectors have to be escorted by police while their jobs, while doing their jobs, because of warring gangs in Port of Spain. We've reached a stage now where we are now fighting over garbage. And while all of this is going on, the vaunted anti-gang legislation is still awaiting proclamation. So where are we? The UNC is calling on all independent institutions to rise up legally and let your voices be heard. Let us insist that the questions be answered. We are too silent as a people. Hiding behind a Facebook profile will not cut it. Speaking in soothing language to citizens who are daily losing hope will not suffice. This is not the time to sit on the fence. Not the time to sit on the fence. Let it never be said that our independent bench sang for their supper, or that the PNM can always rely on their support. They are all honorable men. But let that not be said. Let our independent institutions all stand up and be counted in our country's hour of need. It was a different Rodney who centuries ago said, and I quote, "England expects every man to do his duty." This Rodney, in 2021, calls on all fair-minded citizens and institutions of honor, dignity, character, and strength to join with Kamla Prasad Bisesa in this time of need for Trinidad and Tobago. If ever Trinidad and Tobago needed you, it is now. I thank you.
Okay, we'll take questions. Any questions particularly? Just identify who so we could start.
Hi, Ms. Lakshmi.
Sure.
This question is to you. In the President's statement today, she said, "In this information age, with its demands that all be laid bare on the public stage, the nature and function of a non-executive head of state is perhaps an anomaly, in which exists a tension between the insatiable public desire to know and the very real need on occasion for confidentiality. The office of head of state is expected to be one of careful, deliberate, judicious decision-making, sometimes in circumstances that are unprecedented and for which no specific guidance is to be found in the law. How do you address the issue of confidentiality as opposed to the issue for the need to know, that to provide that public information as it relates to this specific issue and matter?"
Well, firstly, let me say that the need to know and the public's desire to know is not rooted in simply you just want to know for knowing's sake. It is about confidence in institutions. I understand that there are things that may be confidential, but we have systems in place. We have processes and procedures. So had it come to the attention of the public that the process had to be scrapped because information was received and that information was passed on to the appropriate authority, that the source of that information was an appropriate authority, a trustworthy source, not some mongoose gang of two picked up and appointed by a prime minister who has already been complaining about the person, then it would be easy to say that the need for confidentiality existed, and you can give the public some sort of comfort in knowing that the established protocols, processes, and procedures were followed. When you just pick up yourself and vai decide what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, and you leave room for people to speculate and to ask questions and to question the validity of your actions, then you are feeding the public's suspicion, and you are feeding the public's lack of confidence in the very important institutions. So that balancing act between confidentiality and the need to know is something that all public officials have to address their mind to, but they must be very careful when doing so, and they must always look at the bigger picture. In this situation, the opposition certainly thinks that the Prime Minister was left unchecked in the manner in which he was conducting himself, both unchecked by the President and, it appears, well, Ms. Sipasad, and that everyone was simply marching to the beat of the Rowley drum, and that cannot be acceptable to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. And executive or non-executive president, at the end of the day, as any person who holds office, public office, you must act in the best interest of the people. And I say again with the greatest of respect that I do not believe that what we've heard so far, and even with the president's explanation today of what her actions or lack of action was in this situation, that she acted in the best interest of the public in this situation.
Yeah. And Ms. Lochmedial, again in that statement, the president could have stated that in the matter of an acting police commissioner, that she must await the list of nominees submitted by the newly appointed commission. Mm-hmm. And she said, as of now, there are 3 notifications with the clerk of the House of Representatives, 1 ongoing consultation with the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition, mm-hmm. and the Office of the President continues to work assiduously to identify a 5th nominee. The process for appointments to the Police Commission provides 2 opportunities for the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition to express their views on the nominee, first in the consultation process and again in the House of Representatives.
Yes.
As for this process playing itself out, as the President stated there, this is an opportunity for the Leader of the Opposition as well as the Prime Minister to express their views on the nominees. Mm-hmm. Is the opposition going to do so? And also in terms of, we know that some people have said that this is an opportunity for reformation, for change, for a review of the process of how things will be done. Is that something that the opposition is going to put forward and look at addressing as well?
All right, well, you asked me a lot of things there. Firstly, are we going to comment on the nominees? Of course, any person nominated to hold such important office, the opposition leader and the members of the House, because this notification goes to the House, of course, would take every opportunity to express their views. I think the opposition leader has already expressed certain concerns with respect to 1 nominee, and she has done so publicly. She has also expressed concern about the short space of time which she was given in order to consult and to make her thoughts known to the president, I believe. And again, this is very important. We don't want to get it wrong. I think we certainly got it wrong before, and so we don't want to get it wrong again. So it takes time to do your due diligence. I remember I was right here and I heard the opposition leader say, and I totally and completely endorse what she's saying. Due diligence is very important, and had better due diligence been done in the past, we may not have found ourselves in the situation we are in now. Needless to say, going forward, of course, when the notifications come to the Parliament, I'm sure all members of the House who wish to express their views would take that opportunity. With respect to reformation, you don't just wake up one day because something has gone wrong and try to find a quick fix. I think that's what they try to do with all these orders that they keep passing and amending and all that, and the person charged with doing it has not done a great job at it. So any type of reformation that is required would require deep and extensive consultation. The 2006 suite of legislation and legislative changes that I mentioned, that didn't happen overnight. There was a across the aisle, Rodney, you remember when Prime Minister Manning at the time, far more statesman than what we have now, engaged with the opposition and asked for, and they came together and they sort of worked together towards producing these, what we have as our new Police Service Act and the regulations that came thereafter, and the establishment of the PCA, and I think there was an SRP Act, and of course the amendment to the Constitution and the changes to the structure of the Police Service Commission and their functions and so on. All of that didn't happen overnight. It was a long process, and so any changes that have to be made, of course, I can't express a view. I don't know. There would be need for consultation and so on. And at the end of the day, as a party, we are a very democratic unit. So there would be consultation within the party as well, as how we feel about those things. And of course, if someone were to put that forward, like every other suggestion that comes forward, it would be taken under consideration by the opposition as a responsible opposition representing the views of the people of the country. That's it.
Mr. Charles.
Yeah.
You've mentioned the state of crime in Trinidad and Tobago, and some might say that this is nothing new that we have been seeing as it relates to crime and criminal activity in Trinidad and Tobago. Do you think that this issue is, part of the reason for what we saw recently in terms of that upsurge in crime more so? Do you think that not having a police commissioner has affected?
Yeah, I think there are many reasons. One of which is the failed policies of the government, the economic policies. People are hungry, people are in dire need of sustenance, etc. So there's that level of crime. I think the criminal elements in the world have figured out how to move around the state of emergency, how to shift their modus operandi. So we are seeing elements of that. And I think a significant part of it is the collapse of morale in the Trinidad and Tobago police service. You have seen that the Prime Minister wrote a year ago. So that is what we know. There may have been other interventions into the police. For example, if the Prime Minister launched an investigation into the Commissioner of Police, that could not have been done without the knowledge of senior persons in the TTPS. Because questions would have to be asked, investigations, the FUL license, etc. So all these things speak to a situation where the state is unwittingly interfering in independent institutions and causing unnecessary problems. And that could be manifested in the situation today.
And you call as well for independent bodies to stand up and to let their voices be heard. So are you saying that these independent bodies have gone voiceless and are not reacting to matters and issues in the country?
Well, no, it is manifestly obvious, clear. Let me put it to you, if Kamala Persad-Bissessar were Prime Minister today, they would be marching around the Parliament non-stop. Father Harvey, I saw pictures of Father Harvey with a mannequin about our political leader. And today I want to tell Trinidad and Tobago that Kamala Persad-Bissessar is a profile in courage. I could not take the licks that lady has taken in for Trinidad and Tobago. Our institutions have gone silent. The Law Association, we hear them from time to time. We have not heard them on this issue. We have not heard the IRO on this issue. The Chambers of Commerce, we have not heard them. So the question we ask, it is for them to search their conscience and realize if they're doing good by Trinidad and Tobago. My view is they're not.
So do you think that is political? Is that what you are saying? That their lack of voices?
I don't know the reason. I suspect that it is the bullying tactics of the Prime Minister. It is difficult to confront the Prime Minister, It is difficult. But former Prime Minister Patrick Manning told us that, I quote his words, "You do not know what I have been going through for the past 12 years with Dr. Rowley." If a Prime Minister could be forced to confess his hurt and pain, what about the average citizen? In Parliament, sometimes I get the distinct impression that he cross the floor and beat us. I'll say no more on that.
Mr. Charles,
yes, sir.
Myself on Newsday here. You said that if the EBC is compromised and it's under the control of PNL. Are you saying then that it's impossible for the UNC to win another general election?
I'm saying that it is difficult to win any election. Let me give you an example. There was a Canadian minister years, centuries ago, came to Trinidad. I think it was Reverend Grant, Presbyterian. And the question came up about building a church somewhere in Duncan Village, near Palmis. And he said, he wrote to the Canadian authorities saying that we do not wish to build a church here because it is so near to San Fernando that once the road is repaired, it was not necessary to build a church at that time. So he saw centuries ago that Palmis and Duncan Village is demographically linked to San Fernando West. San Fernando West is upper middle class. Palmis is upper middle class. Why is Palmis in a constituency of agriculturally oriented Oropoch East? Why? It is to make San Fernando West a P&M constituency. If Palmis, Duncan Village, ever became part of San Fernando, to which they are linked, in fact, Palmis is a dormitory city for businessmen in San Fernando West. If they were ever linked, the UNC will win by 4,000 votes. Why? Why? And I asked the question, and I'm left with the view. I'm left with the view that the EBC so arranges its, and I did geography, so I know about spatial arrangements to ensure a P&M victory. Well, thank you very much for being with us this morning. It's part of our process of keeping the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago informed. We meet every Sunday, and thanks for your listenership. And we ask that you, as an independent citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, that you rise up and be counted. Trinidad and Tobago ever needed you. It's now. Thank you.